Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our 2020 in film wrap-up show here on the Flicksation Podcast. My name, Eric Madsen. I'm here at Flicksation Studios, P City, Wisco. It's bitterly cold here. I know we don't like to talk about the weather, but we're going to anyway. Ian, the minister over in the Denver area, it's kind of that way for you too, huh? So you're no sympathy.
I don't think it's going to last as long, but yeah, it's brutal. I think it's the coldest day since I moved here almost 2 years ago. So that's pretty bad. I think it's -1 outside right now. So that's bad. Not into it.
Well, Robert Gassaway, it's probably a couple more degrees your way.
Oh yeah, I'd say so. Today was 75 and sunny, blue skies. I mean, right now it's 9 o'clock at night and it's 63 out. So I can't relate. I feel for you guys. But I didn't go out with that beautiful weather. I stayed inside all day and watched movies to prep. It was one of the funnest preps I've had for one of these best of shows, which are, if I'm being honest, always the show I look forward to the most, just recapping the year and going through the best of. I kind of love the coming down the stretch, just checking off a bunch on the list that I knew I wanted to get to. So today, that's basically all I prepared for to come talk to you guys about what we watched.
And it's so shitty out. There's nothing. All I did all day was look at updates from Robert about the 75 movies he watched. That was the big. I felt like I had left this year behind, and you guys are pulling me back in. But now, I'm pretty excited about it. I'm happy to be recording again. I feel like there were times throughout this. I'm working and stuff. I'm out, but there's times throughout this quarantine type thing where all things are fine. But when the weather's shitty, I'm feeling pretty claustrophobic. It'd be nice to see a friend again in my life. But this is the best, best we can do right now. I didn't move out here thinking I'd never see my friends again. So it's really pretty brutal right now. But so this show is at least something. It's a pretty good something, so I'm ready and excited.
All right, yeah, we're going to talk about the best stuff from 2020 in film. So this isn't exactly our typical year-end show, but of course it was not a typical year, period. Although, I don't know how different it was for me, other than sheer quantity, which it's kind of a head-scratcher how I got less movies in this year than usual, but it was always trending towards seeing more films at home anyway, especially since on this show we watch a lot of foreign stuff. So, yeah. Robert, you got to the theater a lot, typically, but so you're getting back a little bit now, Robert. How's this long, nasty stretch been without the theater for you?
Yeah, way less theater films. As you guys know, I probably used to watch 80 to 90% of the films I would watch would be in theater. That's just my preferred method of taking in films on the biggest screen, the biggest way possible to get the art into my eyeballs. And just theaters were just not a thing for a while this year for all of us. Where I live in Arizona, they've been opening up slowly but surely, but people just kind of aren't going out. So it's been a lot of empty theaters, but I've been thankful for this sort of trickle of films going to theaters in the last 3 months or so, because the beginning of the year, it was an unusually poor start to the year. And I should have recognized that from when I went to AFI Fest at the end of 2019, and I saw about 10 films from 2020 that I didn't really care for. I didn't love AFI Fest, the first festival that I went to that I didn't really love a ton of films at. And then, so for the first half of 2020, I think Baccarat was my favorite film for the first 6 months of the year until my eventual number one came out. But it was just a really down year, really lackluster start to the year. So I was really thankful for the sort of the wave of films we got in the last couple of months that kind of salvaged what could have been a pretty dismal year. I saw a little bit more than half what I usually see. In a normal year, I'm seeing 80-something films. This year I saw in the upper 40s from 2020, and I really like all of my like top 30. So that tells you it was a good year for film overall. Much better than I thought it was going to be if you would have asked me 6 months ago.
So I saw 0 films in theater this year. Huge bummer. And 0 so far this year. So going back to near a little bit before Christmas of 2019. So it feels, I was watching more at home, and partially because of cost out here being a little higher, less of my sweet $5 matinees and Tuesdays and stuff. But yeah, I'd really like to go back. So it's a huge bummer. I watched less for sure. I'm in the mid 60s. But I had been trending down in general, and I could have easily, gotten to a much higher number. So there's a story of the year that I don't know if we'll get into a little bit more about the year in general. But for me, kind of the big story of the year is, I think it was because I was watching at home. This is the year I decided to bail on everything after 15 minutes and stop just enduring movies I don't think I'm into, out of hopes it's going to turn around, or so that I can like check the box next to it on Letterboxd or something. Not that that's how it works. I guess you do check a box, don't you? I think that's what. So I bailed on like 40 movies for sure, without question. When you're not paying for almost anything, all these, or at least they're on streaming sites and stuff, or streaming services, like it's really easy to stop. And yeah, I'm just not enduring a lot of trash, or a lot of just stuff I'm not into. So my number was pretty low, but I was able to find stuff I liked and nothing I absolutely loved. So that's a bummer as well. So I think everything I'm going to talk about I liked, but I don't have anything that I thought was like a very great movie I'm telling everyone to watch.
Yeah, and I'm kind of exactly like that. I think my highest rated film is a 4. I do have a 4.5 on something rated 4.5. I don't really think it fits a film, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. But had a couple of, or a decent number of 4s this year, a ton of 3.5s, and plenty of stuff I thought was terrible because
you finished them.
because my wife watches Netflix and Amazon Prime films and stuff, and sometimes I'm there for the ride. So 25 films for me this year, so way under typical.
I just don't think it helps finding a film that blows you away if you're watching it at home, unless you get that perfect viewing experience. Like Robert, it's a little different. He doesn't have animals. He's not married. There's like things. I just think if you go to the theater, you might have a different experience, even with one of these 4s that we watched. So it's harder unless you've got like a really good setup and people just leave you alone.
Well, I will say today was all watching films just streaming, and within the last 24 hours, I did go to the theater last night and see one, but in the last 24 hours, I saw 3 films that made my top 10, like my number 8, 9, and 10 films were just in the last 24 hours.
Nice.
I ended up with 4 films that got 4.5 stars out of the 48 I watched. And yeah, you're talking about kind of themes for the year. I kind of did notice in mind, like, this is a great year for music and film. We'll kind of talk about that in some of my favorites, and a great year for like documentary style, even in like fiction films, like documentary style perspective, I think was really good this year or last year. Not really a great year for like comedies, but that's been a trend I've noticed the last couple of years, is comedy's been going down. Like Marvel has been making a lot of like the funniest films the last couple of years. And then 2020 was an awful year for comic book films. We didn't really get much Marvel, or no Marvel, I guess. But we've been spoiled with that. At least I have been the last couple of years by the shit factory cranking it out. But that churn slowed down, so we didn't get top comedies from Marvel. But like Eric mentioned, some of the stuff we might mention, some people would say are not even movies or don't qualify. I think 4 of my top 10 could be considered not movies. And that wouldn't have happened in the past, but 2020 was such a weird year. These organizations that give awards, and they're bending their rules to accommodate late entries and things, because how do you measure what came out in 2020 if they didn't qualify because they didn't play in a theater? Well, theaters weren't a thing for several months, so you kind of have to be pretty forgiving of that. So if you're going to fudge on the rules for your your lists, I think this is the year to do it.
Tonight on the show, we're going to give our top 3 films. We're going to talk a little bit about our favorite performances, and then we'll just throw it around for any more general discussion of 2020 in film. Contact the show via email, FlicksationPodcast@gmail.com. Call or text the voicemail line, 608-535-9302. Like the show on Facebook or follow the show on Twitter @Flicksation. All right, guys, that brings us into the What You Drinking segment here on the Flicksation Podcast this evening. Robert Gassaway, what you drinking?
Well, if you were here and you saw what I was drinking, you would think it was like a Shirley Temple, and you wouldn't really be too far off because that's what it looks like, a tall pink glass. But it's basically gin and ginger ale. But this is Canada Dry Cranberry Ginger Ale, which I just kind of discovered, and it's a really good mixer. And then I've discovered this gin called Citadel from France, really good gin. So I put that in the cranberry ginger ale, a little bit of cherry juice and some maraschino cherries. It's a nice reddish, pinkish drink, and it tastes great. So I don't know if I invented that or if gin and ginger ale is already a thing, but it's darn good.
Minister, what you drinking?
Yeah, I thought with the best of the year show, I had to break out the best beer I've had, or at least best of this type. So I think I was sending sexy pictures of this to Robert a couple weeks or months ago, but it's the best coffee stout I've ever had. It's from Santa Fe Brewing Company, and it's just an Imperial Java Stout. I had never had it until about a month ago, and it's just, I don't know if anyone else likes that type, but it's amazing. It's got like a caramel color to the foam, and I'm drinking it out of, very excited that I went to the flea market and bought one of these old school German Stein mugs, those colorful like ceramic ones with like old German people stuff. Big fan of those, and I've never had one. So I brought the goods, and what Robert has sounds actually wonderful as well. So let's not drop a natty light on us, Eric.
No, actually, I got some of the best beer around, free stuff, this week. So I got some samples from a guy, all from a brewing company called One Barrel out of Door County, which is a very touristy part of Wisconsin. I got 3 single cans here, all different makes. The first one that I'm almost done with now, the Up North Lager. I also have the Ninja Dust IPA, fruity IPA, sorry. Typically not much of an IPA guy, but never had fruity as far as I know, so I thought I'd give it a shot anyway, and it was free. And I also have the Varsity Pilsner here, all from One Barrel. Chad was pretty excited about it. He said their stuff is pretty great. So the Up North Lager is fine. So far, so good. Saving the IPA for the end, Ian. So
yeah, it's
I'll let
good.
you know.
They have, I thought they brewed it there, but maybe it's just on tap. But they have a whole tap room downtown Madison of that on Regent Street, and it's great. So yeah, good stuff.
It just does One Barrel beers.
Yeah, it's their tap house. So I assume they
nice.
brewed there as well. Maybe they brew a couple places, but it's good.
All right, so let's talk about your top 3 films of the year. Robert, what was just outside for you?
Well, it was tough to actually leave out Lover's Rock especially, but you could lump that into all of the small acts. What do you call it? Quintilogy, the the group of 5 films from Steve McQueen. I think collectively it was a great collection, but the one that stood out for me was Lovers Rock. It's just a really unique filmmaking style, great cinematography and great use of music. That and Sound of Metal, another one that does great use of sound, and just that one was definitely in my top 3 for much of the year until just recently. So I'd say those 2 were the toughest. That just barely missed my top 3.
Yeah, I think there's probably 3 others that had a shot with Steve McQueen's Mangrove, which we talked about on the show, a Nigerian Netflix one called The Lost Okoroshi, and then another one we talked about on the show that I raved and all of us liked, Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor. All those, I think, had a real shot.
I guess just outside for me, and wouldn't have been just outside, but I wanted to mention I did have a 4.5 star thing here, but and when I said that I didn't really consider this a film so much, Robert, I hadn't even thought of the small act stuff because that is just films to me, I guess. But yes,
because they're like an hour, right? They feel like films, all 5 of them to me.
Right. So my 4.5 rated thing this year, of course, the David Lynch short film, What Did Jack Do? And I've seen it a couple times now, and I do wrestle with it a little bit. I don't know if any other filmmaker on the planet can get away with something like this. I don't know if it's really good or I just like it for what it is. Just love David Lynch stuff, but yeah, I think if you see this from any other director, you're just like, what the fuck is this? This is dumb. But with Lynch, it's always funny. So I don't know. I loved it. It's very short, and didn't know if I wanted to defend this as my number 1 of the year. So I left this off the countdown, but I will give a honorable mention, thumbs up to What Did Jack Do? Check it out on Netflix for sure. All right, Robert, your top 3 films. Go ahead and just talk through the whole thing. Your top 3 films of 2020.
Well, 2 out of my top 3 are Disney Plus exclusives, which I would not have guessed. I don't even have a Disney Plus account. I borrow somebody else's. I'm not on there. I haven't even seen season 2 of Mandalorian yet, but I've seen 2 of my top 3 films. So number 3 is Soul, the new Pixar film. I just think it's one of the best Pixar films. It gave me that same feeling as when I saw Up or The Incredibles or Ratatouille or even the first Toy Story. Like that, I think Soul is upper echelon Pixar and the best animated film of the year. And it's not uncommon for me to have an animated film in my top 5. That's happened, pretty much every other year. And it happens again this year. I think animation is some of the best storytelling. As you guys also know, I'm a sucker for a good body swap story. It's the reason why listeners, on the next episode, we're going to be reviewing the Vince Vaughn body swap film Freaky, just because we love body swap so much. I am going to see that, but I have not yet. But I think it's cleverly approached. It's been used a lot of different ways, this trope of body swap. I think it's really interesting and effective, and it's used for a portion of Soul. But there's other parts of Soul. There's things that are, that make you tear up. There's things that are really super funny, super sweet, very cute, excellent animation, pretty incredible collaboration on the score. You hear about Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor, but it's really John Batiste doing the piano in this film, the jazz, that really carries it through and gives the emotion to it. I enjoyed the voice acting, but I really like the depiction of basically the afterlife and before life, and it's a lot like a film that Eric and I quite enjoy, Alan Pressburger's A Matter of Life and Death. There's elements of that in this film before it gets into the body swap stuff and after. And so it's combining a lot of things that I'm a sucker for already. Plus, it's just a winning story, just very charming, and it gets at identity and who you are versus who you thought you would be, and coming to terms with that and what you are in life or the meaning of life. It's good. It's kind of it's a deep film, but it's not like just it's pop psychology, like kind of armchair psychology, but it does allow you to kind of sit with some elements of it and kind of reflect on it a little bit more deeply than that surface level. I think the artistry of it, I mean, it's easy to take for granted the look of Pixar films. I just thought it looked great. The before life part, with these kind of abstract figures, really kind of felt like Ghibli to me. And it's the first time that Pixar has really reflected Ghibli to me. I know that when they started with John Lasseter, he was such a fan of Hayao Miyazaki. And this film, I mean, I think they're kind of on a roll with what Pete Docter has been doing. Pixar was stuck in a rut for a few years doing a lot of sequels to their stuff, not doing a lot of originals. But it takes them a long time for a film to come to fruition, just like Ghibli. It'll be an 8-year process from conception to shooting out the door. Yeah, this one has elements of Ghibli in it. I think that abstract kind of spirituality or that liminal space that this film kind of likes to dwell in. I liked it more than Inside Out. They've been on a roll since Inside Out, which is a good film. But that plus, I didn't see Incredibles 2, but I'm sure I'd probably like that. But with Coco, which I loved as well a couple of years ago, and then Onward, I heard is decent this year. I think this is another good original. So they're back on the right track. That's my number 3 film. My number 2 film is actually Nomadland from Chloe Zhao. And this one was kind of surprising to me because I liked her last film, The Writer. And this is more the same where she kind of embeds her camera with real life people. This Nomadland this year is kind of like, it's the Florida Project or it's American Honey, 2 films that were in my top 3 or top 5, I think top 3, both the years that they came out. And this is right there, the number 2 film. It's the non-actors or the first-time actors. And then you take a couple of established actors that are really good at playing naturalistic. Here it's Frances McDormand, who you may have heard, I guess she told her husband, Joel Cohen, I think she's married to, when she was 45, 20 years ago, she said, when I turn 65, I'm going to change my name from Fran to Fern, and I'm going to smoke Lucky Strike cigarettes and drink Wild Turkey and buy an RV and drive around the country. And now she's 65, and she got to do that for this film. And I really like the empathy that this film carries for its subject matter and its subjects and the people that it introduces us to and the lifestyle. It's not like groundbreaking. Like there's been other films that explore this sort of van life or nomadic life, traveler's life, what that means. I already named a couple of them that kind of do that. But this one, in a year of, I just talked about Soul, which has great music and is concerned with jazz. Lover's Rock, I already mentioned, concerned with music. I think Nomadland, not really concerned with music, might have the best music of the year. It takes an existing album or music collection from, I think, an Italian composer and uses it for the score throughout the film. But it's not really a score. It doesn't count as a score. It's just a soundtrack because they're just using his music pre-existing. And it's just so beautiful, as is the cinematography, handheld, nimble stuff. But these landscape shots, it might be the best cinematography of the year. Frances McDormand is incredible. I think Chloe Zhao is the best director of the year. I got to see it in IMAX. Really weird. It's the first time I've ever seen like a studio. Well, it's like an independent film, like a small art house kind of independent film in IMAX. They never show this type of film in IMAX, and people don't really know about it. And so I went to a big IMAX room that had like 5 people in it. And so it's this giant space and this little film. But I think the format really fits it well because it's kind of a road trip film in Arizona and the landscapes of the Badlands in South Dakota and Western United States. I don't want to say too much about it. That's the surface level stuff, but a lot of people haven't seen it yet. But if you can see it in IMAX, I recommend it. But it'll be great, I think, on what is it? Probably Amazon Prime Film, I think. But it's my favorite film because my number 1, you could say, is not a movie. If you want to, put a hard and fast rule on what a movie is, then Nomadland would be my number 1. And I hope it gets a lot of awards this year because I think it's not like groundbreaking. It's just, it's kind of like that Ebert quote, the movies are like a machine for generating empathy. And this film does that for like retired age folks that decide they can't live on their government allowance. They, want to live life in a different way. And this film's kind of a slice of life of that with just enough storytelling to keep you hooked and thinking about it. So, with that being said,
well, that's going to be exciting, Robert, when that wins Best Picture. This will be the one time you're the Academy. It doesn't happen. It's supposed to be like a runaway favorite. Like, it doesn't mean it's a shared thing. But yeah, 6 days from now it hits Hulu, so we can all.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but yeah, that's supposed to be like this big front runner, like no brainer. With the next closest thing being what I have to assume is that shitty Sorkin movie. So I don't know. Maybe maybe that thing will be the Green Book to whatever that beat. That was supposed to be way better, and everyone was all sad about. But yeah, Robert he has become the establishment. Okay, sorry.
I think so, with the Disney Plus stuff and this one being like a front runner. But this is a pretty indie film to be a front runner. Like, it's not. And I have, like, every year I've had one in the Oscar race that's like one of my personal favorites. I think ever since Spotlight. Like, I really had Spotlight in my top 8 or so. And also, I loved Roma. Was my number one. It was, highly thought of by the Academy. Same with La La Land and Moonlight. I had those super high on my list.
Look, this might just happen at that age because Eric had a run of him being the establishment like 3 years in a row.
Oh, I think it was worse than that. Yeah.
But it's close to the age Robert probably is now, so this might like be a thing that happens. So I look forward to this.
I think you're onto something there, yeah. So speaking of establishment, my number one film of the year is the film stage play version of Hamilton. Like, talk about like establishment. Like, this is monoculture at its best to me. Like, where just everybody's like kind of accepts that this is this phenomenon, a cultural phenomenon of Hamilton. I heard about it for several years being this amazing stage play, and the cast is changing, and you can't afford tickets. Don't even try when you're in New York, and it's not coming to your city. Nobody, I'm not probably ever going to see it. I love it so much, I probably will see it, but I'm not paying hundreds of dollars to see it. And so when it finally did come to streaming a year early, around the 4th of July, it became my favorite film. I watched it twice within, I think, 24 hours. And I want to see it again. I think it's highly rewatchable. The rumor is that it could be used to kind of jumpstart Broadway after COVID in 2021 around July 4th. It might bring, Hamilton could be the one to lead the way. That might be just wishful thinking at this point. We'll have to see. But we talked about this on the show. I don't have to go into Hamilton too much about what I liked, didn't like about it. But what stuck with me is that, it's not just rap songs. It's not just Lin-Manuel Miranda writing like hip hop history. There's way more like songs. There's like half the songs are like sung songs. My favorite is Dear Theodosia. That's the song that stuck with me. And I never listened to like film soundtracks, but this one I did listen to a lot after I watched the film. And if I'm being honest, this top spot is actually probably shared with David Byrne's American Utopia. That's technically my number 5 film of the year. But I think just because I haven't watched it a second time yet, I want to watch it like on a big sound system, at a friend's house with surround sound, and just pump it up and do like a concert style, like I did with the Talking Heads' Stop Making Sense, one of the best concert films ever. But I think of Hamilton and I think of American Utopia together. They're both staged performances, but they both go beyond just doing that. Like Hamilton, you can tell throughout that they're putting the camera on the stage, above the stage, so it's not like they would be in the theater. Same with American Utopia with Spike Lee. He's intercutting, splicing to like archival footage and documentary footage that's not part of the stage show. And so it is going that next step to become a film and to leverage that and to be effective with it. Very cinematic. I think Hamilton, the streaming version on Disney Plus, is extremely cinematic. But like just watching it, like, I don't know, like ignites a little flame inside me. Like, it's just like pure art. Like so much creativity went into the writing of the songs and the staging and the choreography, and the original cast has all done so much since then. It's just it's kind of like Roma in the aspect that it lived up to the hype. So much hype for Hamilton, and when I saw it, I'm like, yeah, it deserved every bit of what I heard. And then so I've just been kind of professing my love for it to everyone that hasn't seen it. But if you consider that not a film, then Nomadland would be number 1 for me, then Soul, and then like Lovers Rock or Sound of Metal. But yeah, those are my top 3. Of course, both Hamilton and Soul are on Disney Plus. And so even in a year, who needs Marvel? Usually I'm the Marvel zombie. Yeah. This year I didn't need them, and it still kept me happy.
Crazy, Robert. I will tell you, might as well just get this out of the way now. We have the same number 1 and number 3, Robert.
So
Wait
a minute.
Yeah, but
Oh, no.
Hamilton for me, guys.
I didn't.
This is-
I should have listened to that. I didn't even listen to you guys. Sorry, I was like, I just tuned out. I didn't listen to that episode. So,
okay.
So
yeah.
you haven't watched it?
I mean, I haven't watched any of your top 3. One hasn't been available. So I'm counting Nomadland as next year. So maybe I'll be the establishment by then. But yeah, I haven't seen any of those. I mean, it's such a weird thing. This is the year where everything's available at home. Yet I didn't see any of those.
But it's not. Yeah. Well, you do have that
I
service.
do have
right?
it,
Oh,
yeah, but it's like I can't. It's a useless service to me. I can't imagine paying for that service. There's nothing. I mean, I watched like Robin Hood on there with like that fox.
yeah.
That was
That's
alright.
That's a
a
great movie.
good one.
Okay. I think that's like about it. So,
Yeah, we
so I
watched
didn't
a
see
lot
it.
of stuff. So yeah.
do you have the same number 1 and number 3?
That's never happened on this.
So
show.
yeah,
And you like American Utopia, or you didn't watch that either?
that I've not seen. No.
Clear the studios and have a dance floor put down for. I didn't even watch that, and I probably have more Talking Heads albums than you two put together times 4. So I don't know what's going on.
Right. So yeah. Anyway, with Hamilton, Robert referenced the episode that I think all we did was talk about Hamilton on that show, right?
Mhm.
So
So,
Robert, Christian, and I. So you want a deeper dive on it? Go check it out. But I agree. I couldn't tell you very many musicals that I would listen to the soundtrack ever. And I did listen to this one twice afterwards, 200% more than most things. So, yeah, it kind of blew me away. I was really expecting to be disappointed with it, or it was so hyped and whatever. But I'm glad we pretty much got the original cast here. It was a great 2.5 hours. I was really surprised at how much I liked it. So, Hamilton, best feeling coming out of a film for me this year. And number 3 with Soul. That was just something that it really worked for me too, Robert, with as Pixar hasn't done a great job with that lately. They've kind of gotten a little back on track the last 3 or 4 movies or so now. But my kids didn't say a word through the whole thing. They watched it. They liked it quite a bit as well. So Tina Fey, pretty good in it too, I would say. So that's Soul. So my number 2, the wild card here, watched it today for the first time. So yeah, Deerskin, film by Quentin Dupieux, pulling into the number 2 slot for me. Sucker for Dupieux films, as you probably know from listening to this show. There's been a couple, I guess only one I didn't really like. That was Reality. That Being Flat one with the puppets, I have not seen that one, oddly enough. But everything else I've liked pretty much a good deal. Deerskin, no exception. Our old buddy Jean Dujardin here from The Artist, in those OSS movies. He's making movies. He's donning a deerskin jacket that he's pretty much spent his life savings on, and he is on a quest to keep anybody else from wearing jackets. So that's pretty much the crux of it here. But once again, Dupieux delivering some great music. This isn't boring at all. Sometimes his films can get a little long in the tooth, but no, this one moves right along. I don't know where he comes up with some of this shit. Great stuff. So watched that this morning and enjoyed it quite a bit. So Deerskin available on HBO Max right now. So if you have that service in the States at least, check it out there. But yeah, so Soul number 3, Deerskin 2, and Hamilton 1 for me, Minister. You're going to have 3 different ones. I've seen yours. So yes, you have 3 different ones.
Yeah, I dropped mine early, so it is different. I actually thought we might have some crossover. We have kind of crossover on my 3rd one, and then I thought we might cross over on my number 2, so I'm a little surprised. But yeah, so my number 3.
You have Onward for your number 3.
Onward, yeah, I also didn't watch it. I watched one animated movie this year, and it will come up later, and it was very good. So I'm batting 1,000, and I'm going to keep it that way. Everything else gets 8 minutes, and I'm out. I'm out on those animated ones. No, I didn't even push play on another animated one this year, so I'm not sure what that's about. Yeah, my number 3, Eric did not want to include it apparently, but it is David Lynch's What Did Jack Do? So yeah, 17-minute black and white. David Lynch playing a detective interrogating a monkey suspected of murder. The monkey speaks and has a human mouth superimposed over its face. It's actually played straight, but this thing, yeah, this is the only one I'm not going to really go into. It's just, I'll just throw descriptors out there. Dorky, which is key. Dorky, absurd, surreal, melodramatic, and hilarious. So I watched this twice. I think it might have been like the first movie of the year I watched, and then one of the last. I think it's great. So I have no reservations including it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'll go a little longer on the other two. So this is a little weird because I almost always have a foreign movie in the number 1 or definitely really high. My highest one was that Lost Okoroshi, that Nigerian one, which I absolutely recommend on Netflix. But so not only do I have no foreign, at least no foreign language films, they're all, my top 2 are both biopics, which is, very bizarre. And I actually have a couple other ones I like too. So biopics, very weird. So my number 2,
what's a number 1 biopic?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're, unconventional ones generally here for me, one more than the other, and Hamilton definitely not conventional, stodgy biopic, I'm sure. So yeah, my number 2 was Matthew Rankin, his film The 20th Century, which is a Canadian one. This is an extremely fabricated biopic of the former 20-plus year Prime Minister of Canada, William Lyon Mackenzie King. I think Eric liked this. Robert saw it today, maybe, and liked it, I imagine.
Liked it a lot. I think it's probably the funniest film of the year.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's funniest film. It's a very out there, absurdist comedy. Visually, I struggle to explain it. But it's almost homemade looking in a way, like some kind of mix of early Technicolor and 1960s kitschy sci-fi styrofoamy looking sets. There's other stuff going on with the way it's filmed and stuff, but it looks, I mean, the shortcut is anyone who likes Guy Madden. It's in that vein, and it's not unfair to make visual comparisons. I'm a huge Guy Madden fan. But it looks, kitschy and silly, but it looks good. Also you could compare it to like that Mishima movie from Paul Schrader at times. Like that looked great, but it looked very artificial.
I think it has the best visual effects of the year. It's like so low budget, but it's like awesome visual effects.
Yeah, I think the comedy and just the visual splendor of this thing is absolutely enough to carry you through and be maybe even a great movie. But I both of my top 2 I liked on very mood levels and other levels, but I actually think they both have things to say, and I don't know if everyone's coming away from these movies feeling that, but I think this has something on its mind, and the character here who becomes prime minister had this belief that being prime minister was his destiny, instilled by his mother, from his overbearing mother, from a very early age. So he has this destiny, and also a destructive sexual shoe fetish. So I think the film it's like a wonderful illustration of how one's ambition can be manipulated. This guy is potentially very idealistic and possibly a decent leader, but ultimately his need for prestige and power and pleasing mom is more important than his convictions. He gives in. His vice is used against him. He becomes a puppet of a sort to powerful, bad people, and his beliefs fall to the side, and ambition, is all there is. And this, good-natured or good-intentioned people, this happens a lot. And I've been listening to a couple things about a couple world leaders, one modern and one not, who kind of fit this in a way, and it kind of had it on my mind. I'm listening to a bunch of stuff about Mussolini, the socialist. Well, everything kind of falls away towards power. And then like the modern one, listening to the president of Turkey and how he's become a boogeyman of the West to a lot of people, Erdogan, who really that's not who he was or what his convictions were, but in order to hold on to power, you kind of become something else. And this character is actually sympathetic, but he ultimately is a kind of a there to facilitate monsters now. So but on top of all that, really funny. So I think that's a great movie. And then my number one is one I don't think I've seen number one on anyone else's list. So I think it's just really hit me in a certain way. And that's Michael Almereyda's Tesla. I talked about this a little with you guys. Like a Tesla biopic is something for a decade I've just felt needed to happen. There's so much potential there. It's just a no-brainer. It's a person I'm fascinated with. I've read his autobiography, whether you believe it's a real autobiography or not, I don't know. It's pretty weird. He's come up in some comic book type stuff that one Eric and I really liked called Razzle, which is like dealing with his inventions and stuff. Just a really fucking fascinating person. Of course, Bowie played him in the Nolan movie. So I just think there was such potential in that. And then what I got here is not the film I thought I wanted in any way. I thought it had to be like a very heavy, very long, I don't know, just really focus on the out there things that he was dabbling with and the dangerous shit. And that's not what this is. This is a somewhat unconventional biopic with kind of the anachronisms in it, and the flat narration. It's about Ethan Hawke as Tesla, but a lot of the information about his life is presented by a character in the movie sitting at a laptop reading off of Wikipedia and showing you pictures off Google Images. It's and that sounds bad, and maybe it is. I don't know, but it breaks up this period piece thing. Ethan Hawke, to me, is the new Joaquin Phoenix, just a guy I didn't think much of, and now everything he does is interesting, and that raises, already a good actor being put in things that are great and elevates him, and maybe he elevates the films as well. But he underplays it here. It's a quiet performance, not the mad scientist character, but more the brilliant obsessive dreamer operating inside his own mind. But this has something, on its mind as well, because this Tesla character is wrapped up in what he's doing, and he's like floating in the clouds. He's naive on business. He's no interest in the tedious social or societal workings, not interested in business sense. Like, it's just not. And we know these people, artists who just don't even seem to be able to function in the world. So to me, this is about the man, but it's really about power and money, about how insignificant the life's work of this genius is to rich businessmen without vision, which is, most businessmen or all businessmen possibly. Tesla's changing the world, and it's really just to these people who fund him and withhold funding and ruin him. It's just a whim to them. It's a side investment. It's just a flimsy little thing on the side. It's like manipulation of the dreamer, sucking him dry, bleeding out an idea before it blossoms, kind of stamping out progress because they don't recognize potential or can't monetize it. Like, within this film, the ideas of Tesla could have changed the world in much, much bigger ways than it ever did. And I don't know that Tesla was as altruistic as presented here, but within the film, I think it works for its themes really well. And on top of that, side characters, Jim Gaffigan somehow very good. Kyle MacLachlan playing, who the fuck does he play? I just forgot.
Edison.
Edison, there we go. Dropping, I'm positive, I hold steady that he drops no less than 2 Twin Peaks references. So that's wonderful. I'm positive of this. And then to me, it has the scene of the year, which I guess I could save for later, but it doesn't really spoil much, but it spoils the joy of the scene a little, I guess. But there is a scene of Nikola Tesla karaoke singing with with a orange fluorescent background, a Tears for Fears song Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Is that the actual title of the song?
Yeah, that sure is.
Everybody Wants to Rule the World. And I think it's with a very understated and with his Eastern European accent. I think it's the scene of the year. And if it did not include flashbacks, he sings the whole song, I believe, but during the times when he's not actually singing, like the instrumental portions, it cuts to flashbacks of the film. Without that misstep, if it just held on him, I think it would have been an absolutely perfect scene. But that's my favorite scene of the whole year. I was like, I didn't even really want to watch this, and I watched it in bed like on a Sunday morning, and I was giddy with this thing at the end. So I don't know. No one else loves it like this. People definitely like it, but Tesla was awesome, and I did watch it twice. I think there's something there, like meat on the bones or vegan meat on the bones, I guess.
All right.
That one's definitely on my list of stuff to watch, just because I love Hawk and I'm really interested by Tesla. But like that, and like I didn't see Borat 2 or Vast of Night or Kajillionaire or Okoroshi. So there's still like 8 or 10, probably 10 or 12 films from last year that I want to get to that I'm looking forward to. But I just suspected would probably not vie for my top 3, so I didn't get to them before.
26, guys, up at the 26. I forgot about that sparkling gem Borat 2. So, thanks for bringing that one up, Robert. I didn't mark that on my letterbox list. Yeah, I was curious what you had to say on this one, because it's Rotten Tomatoes has it at 53 for critics and like 46 for general audience. And I mean, for me, it's a 3.5, so it's like grouped in with a whole bunch of other stuff on my list. So I have it like at fluid number 12 or something. So yeah, I was kind of curious where you were at. I thought it was a little boring. Yeah, I definitely wasn't as giddy about it, but
you're a big Tears for Fears fan.
Well, I am. I'm a huge Tears for Fears
and I'm not. Yeah, I feel like the dismissals of it focus pretty heavily on it either sinking or swimming with the quirkiness of the presentation and the anachronisms and like the playfulness. And I think that's nice, but I think I just feel like there's a lot of movies that are about things and people kind of are dismissing. Like no one's talking about this movie as being anything other than just like a tiny little playful biopic. And I don't know. I think it has a little more on its mind, especially I think with the depictions of some of those moneyed characters and our society, what it might have been. The idea of free energy to the entire planet is beyond fascinating idea.
Yeah. Man, I don't know. Your 2020 top 2, I think you're just into skating.
I forgot about that.
There's lots of skating in both those movies. So.
Oh, great skating.
Yeah. Into the skating. All right, guys, let's take a quick break here, and then we're going to come back. We're going to talk our favorite performances or memorable ones from 2020, and we're going to just wrap it up with any other discussion that's on our minds from 2020 as we finish out the film season here. So we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. We're going to talk some performances here.
Well, I saw several of my top performances just in the last 24 hours with the kind of last minute cram session. And I kind of group it into three categories, like best newcomer, best ensemble, and best performance. For newcomer, it's either Paul Raci from Sound of Metal or the two girls from Never Rarely, Sometimes Always. Really powerful performances. So those are first-time actors, I believe. Best ensemble, I would go with Minari. That family, there's 5 members of the family in that film, and they're all really good. Like, I've heard the 2 male actors getting a lot of the praise from Minari, but the female actors are equally good. And then I watched One Night in Miami today. I really liked all those performances, that ensemble. But if I'm going to single out performances, if my top 3 performances of the year, today, I had to bump out Viola Davis today. She just missed. She was in my top 3 from Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. I think she's great in that. But then today I saw Judas and the Black Messiah. I think Daniel Kaluuya is excellent in that film as Fred Hampton. So that's my number 2 of the year. My number 3 of the year is Carey Mulligan in Promising Young Woman. She's kind of hit or miss for me. I don't always look forward to seeing her in a film, but I've seen her be great a couple of times, and I think she's just next level in this film. I wasn't expecting to love this film, but I did really end up liking it a lot. I think it is great, the things the movie's doing, and a lot of. It's not like Carey Mulligan's doing all the heavy lifting, but she has to do so much. She shows a lot of range in the film, so she's excellent there. But number 1 overall performance is going to be Riz Ahmed, an actor I've always liked. Really loved him in that HBO series The Night Of. He was excellent in that, and he's kind of on the similar wavelength here, playing a heavy metal drummer who loses his hearing, like in the first scene of the film, and where it goes from there. He had to learn ASL and drumming, but he's just really, his performance, I think, is better than he's ever done before either. So Riz Ahmed, number 1 performance of the year for me.
Just had some notes here on some of the performances that kind of stood out for me in 2020 in no particular order. We talked about Hamilton, the standout there for me, Daveed Diggs, as he does the dual role here. More so the Thomas Jefferson stuff, but big fan of Diggs there. Both the on-screen acting and voice acting of David Lynch from What Did Jack Do? Classic stuff. Liked Nicole Maines in Bit quite a bit.
Wait, what is Bit? Is that I'm blanking on is that
Brad Elmore's vampire film.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And so the lead in that, I think I did hear good things about that performance. Good to know.
Jesse Buckley I liked a lot in the Kaufman film this year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of Ending Things. Letitia Wright and Sean Parks from the Mangrove segment of the Small Axe series. Like those a lot. Of course, Desjardins on Deerskin I thought was a fantastic performance as well. Shout out to Kyle MacLachlan as Edison. I don't think he's bringing much to the role, but I did enjoy seeing Kyle as Edison. And terrible film, but in Borat there was actually a decent performance from Maria Bakalova, who plays Borat's daughter in the film. So she was bringing some pretty interesting stuff to that mostly bad film. It's hard to say for me which one I would say is the best, because they're all pretty equally just memorable for whatever reason. Yeah, even Amanda Seyfried here in Mank stood out this year as well. So
you never had your episode with the List Man breaking down the Oscars, so I don't know.
Right.
How in tune with shit you guys are. I'm very not, but I've picked up a few things. So Eric, are you aware the Borat 2 actress has a real shot to be the winner of Best Supporting Actress?
I had no idea.
I just think it's going to be awesome if she wins Best Supporting Actress and Jared Leto for that terrible HBO movie wins Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah.
It'll be great joy because that's a ridiculous performance, like an enjoyable one, but it's that would be it's just a weird year. There's just weird shit can happen. So that would be a funny. I want to see her win. That'd be funny.
And with the Judas film, Robert, I guess I was leaning towards making that a 2021 film.
Same
So,
with me.
Yeah, so I kind of held off on it, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I'm watching it within the next few days. So I feel like I don't have a. I have a list of people I like, the performances I like, but I feel like I did not. I was not on this year. Next year, I promise to be more on top of this. I just didn't make note of this shit, so I just kind of had to go through the list and try to remember. So I forgot Amanda Seyfried entirely. She's wonderful in that. But I'm gonna like keep notes this year of stuff for categories. So 2020 was a weird one. So lots of crossover though with my stuff. So I've got a bunch of honorable mentions and then a very clear number one. My first honorable mention, I'll say the name, but I'll save it because I'm bringing her up later. It's Julia Garner in a movie called The Assistant. And I don't know if you know who Julia Garner is, but Eric, you've watched that Bateman show, right? Ozarks?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the blonde, curly-haired girl.
Oh, yeah.
Julia Garner. This is a Hulu one called The Assistant, but I'm going to touch on that later. Like Eric, Sean Parks from Mangrove. I just think he's given the chance to do this, but the full acting spectrum, full spectrum of emotion going on here. Sidney Flanagan in Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, which Robert mentioned, just effortlessly and quietly carries a pretty tough film, a really good one. Vasilina Perelagina from a movie called Beanpole, which I don't know if either of you saw, but I saw way back, so I barely remember. Just images of her, essentially, sticking with me, and that's probably the toughest movie I watched this year. It's a Russian film. Sean Cullen from the 20th Century, which is the blustery army general bad guy dude.
Yeah. The
with
fascist
the mustache.
guy, yeah.
And actually, I just think every time he's on scene, his face is comedy gold, and he actually, it doesn't aid the performance in any way, but he kind of looks like my brother that I lost this year, so it's sticking with me. He's like got that look, that face, so it makes me laugh to see that guy. He's awesome in that.
Through those triangle windows helps too. I don't know why that makes that funnier, but it definitely does.
He kind of looks like Andy Reid, coach of the Chiefs.
Well, he looks more like the British fucking actor in The Devils. Also Reid. What's his name? That very intense.
Carol Reid? No.
Carol. I'm gonna look this up. This is Oliver Reed. He reminds me of Oliver Reed, who is a fucking crazy person. So there's just some mania in the eyes that I got joy out of. Another one Eric kind of mentioned, but I'll mention the duo here: Adele Haenel and Jean Dujardin in Deerskin.
Yeah.
I just think there's an awkward chemistry to them, and Dujardin is, people may not know, he's a very versatile comedic actor and just like a great presence. He can do different types of comedy, and some people may mock it. I don't know. I guess everyone liked it, but Eric did. I think he was good in The Artist, and he's good in these really broad things as well. So that dude's good. And my number one, so this is where it's going to get mildly contentious, not with the pick, but with what I say about it. So my number one, by far and away, without question, is Paul Raci from Sound of Metal.
Mm-hmm.
Robert mentioned, no question, performance of the year. No acting here, just was, basically. This guy exists. But here's where the contention is. I think that's amplified by him being opposite Riz Ahmed, who I feel was trying very hard to give a decent or good performance. Like Riz Ahmed is working hard, and this guy just exists, and and that's okay. Working hard to be good is a great thing to do, but this guy to me was just like on another level in a way, like an unmatched naturalism, and part of that's the film as a whole. Like the film he was in, the movie Raci is in, is the film I wanted this to be. To me, the film Riz Ahmed is in when he's not on screen is kind of more standard Sundance darling that I like, maybe okay. And that's, not necessarily Ahmed's fault. I don't know why I'm so worried about defending him. Whatever, he's all right, and Racy's great. But you can just see the life this guy's lived, the journey he's taken in his body, in his face, in his movement, in his tone of voice. Like, I just know this guy. I believe this guy, and he's playing a deaf man who runs a deaf drug rehabilitation community, and a guy who's lived a tough life. And I don't know, you just see everything in everything he does, whether it's tone of voice or just his body. It actually reminded me of a movie I really liked 6-7 years ago called This Is Martin Bonner, just a very small movie. Performances by Paul Eenhorn and Richmond Arquette, not Marquette, Richmond Arquette. Yeah, I really fell for that, and that, I don't know, it's just so real and so quiet, and just an interesting guy. I'm sure Robert's dug into the guy a little bit. Like, he's got a really interesting story, and he is part of a Black Sabbath cover band where he performs Black Sabbath, he says, for 2-hour shows while also doing sign language for every lyric. He is the lead singer, so he's like an old metalhead guy. But that guy is so good in this movie that I didn't even particularly like the movie. So that also takes something when you elevate that far beyond a movie. Check that one out, Eric, if you haven't, on Amazon.
Yeah, I have not. Definitely should check it out. All right, so anything else in 2020 here? I will just say off the cuff here, as I just accidentally was scrolling down to look at some cast information, went too far into the reviews of Deerskin. No, they're all pretty good. I don't see anything under like a 3.5, but two I just wanted to point out because they gave me a chuckle. Sorry to be that person, but this film is truly when In Fabric met Nightcrawler. So,
okay.
Nice mesh there. And the title of the next review down the list, Full Mental Jacket.
Quality.
All right, working out good there. So, all right, Ian, what else you got for 2020 stuff here you want to discuss?
Yeah, I hit a couple of our categories, but I guess we probably won't go on this, but I had it as a note at the beginning. I just wonder if either of you want to comment, because I bitch about it in our little show thread all the time. 2020 to me was the year that, I mean, obviously with the streaming stuff and no theatrical, it's the year that the new reality is prestige movies are on 17 different streaming sites exclusively, and I find it a problem. I find it frustrating and very limiting and confusing, and I don't think it's going back. Do you guys actually have a comment on how you feel about that? Because it's easier because you're at home, but do you have access to every streaming site, or I don't know.
I kind of do. Well, I guess I have most of the major ones covered. I did bite on like a 6-month prepay on HBO Max, so I guess it's like 12 or what is it, $15 a month normally, and I got it for like $9.99 a month by paying for 6 months ahead of time. So we'll see if I hold on after that. Yeah, I wish it wasn't that way. I wish original stuff, maybe. I wish the rental services were able to offer it too. So if you don't want to subscribe to something for a month, you can just pay $3 or $4 to watch it, or $5 or whatever. At least that would be an option. But yeah, jockeying around all these streaming services is definitely a pain in the ass, and I wish it wasn't that way. It's kind of tough, yeah.
I feel like we're mostly only at 4 huge ones that are going to be putting out like prestige movies, but it could easily expand. But I think right now it's Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and HBO, but no Hulu as well. So 5, but it could very easily expand to every studio having their own. I mean, we could have Paramount Channel. I don't know. I don't like it.
Yeah, Peacock, and it's too much. Like, Yeah, and I have access to the top 5 or 6, and I'm happy with that. I don't have like Criterion Channel or a Shutter or whatever, but I think it just feels like an in-between stage, like it's still incomplete and imperfect, just because there's not a good way to search. Like they just need an app or whatever on whatever device that can search all the platforms for you instantly and just pull it up like it's all one cohesive system. Because even then, if you're paying for all of them and it adds up to be like the same price as cable, at least you have more control and customization over the stuff you want on there a little bit more than you did with cable, a bunch of channels you don't watch. So I think that's the way it's headed. Unfortunately, it's not going to be a cost savings, but they need a way to like unify it so you can at least search across all the platforms. But I like now that I only pay for like 2 out of the 6 I have access to, and then friends of mine pay for others, and we just all share each other's passwords. That works well for now. I like that.
Yeah, I just think it's. I mean, I'm able to find stuff. It's just, am I on streaming sites? Am I sharing? I've got like service. If they start implementing them like they do my NBA League Pass, where it knocks me out every once in a while, and I have to re-log in. And in order to re-log in, you have to connect to your Google account. And in order to get into your Google account, it sends a text message. So the person has to be using their phone at the exact time. I mean, it's like a whole game, and that's how much they crack down. It's just, I'm not paying for all this stuff. But so Apple was out of luck on Apple. Anything I wanted to see, it wasn't happening. Sorry I missed a shitty Sofia Coppola movie. But
Yeah, I don't have Apple either. That's the one. I didn't see that one. Or
I know they bought the biggest movie out of Sundance this year, so they paid $25 million for the one that won best whatever. So I mean, it didn't sound like something I wanted, but they seem to want to be in it, and they're going to be in the game, Apple. So I don't know, what the fuck are we watching on that? Like that Jennifer Aniston show? That's what you're getting it for at this point?
Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso, right? Yeah.
And that shitty looking Tom Hanks thing.
Oh, boy. Oh, that was too.
Boy State, Beastie Boys. They got a couple documentaries. I don't know.
Well, did you guys touch on any categories, or do you want me to just roll through what
I did the same thing. I just kind of went over the categories last year and picked kind of one for each one. So we can go rapid fire on those if you want.
Sure. Yeah.
Just rip through it because I did not do that. So.
If something pops in and you want to
Yeah,
shout,
for sure.
go for it. So I did do worst movies. I don't know if you guys saw this, but so the worst movie of the year is boring, so it doesn't count because it's this documentary about Sega Genesis and it's terrible. It's called Console Wars. Don't watch that.
Yeah, I've heard. I didn't have that marked as a 2020 movie, but that is bad. Yeah,
That's like completely inept.
Brings nothing. I was really excited for that, man, and it brings nothing. Yeah.
Peacock, CBS All Access exclusive or something like that. So here we go again, or maybe Peacock. But yeah, really bad movie. Dee Reese, Netflix movie, The Last Thing He Wanted. Really bad because it's incompetent. Like not even a story. Like it doesn't even make sense. Like somebody didn't know how to edit and such, or it got chopped up, which is bad because she's coming off Mudbound, which was one of my favorite movies of the year. But I have a special category of worst here, of movies that I finished and shouldn't have, and I just found excruciating. Like my skin was crawling out of boredom, which doesn't happen a whole lot, but I'm like looking at my bookshelf during it, but I felt like I just got to power through. And that is Richard Stanley's Color Out of Space, which was that Nick Cage thing from the guy who made the Island of Dr. Moreau, kind of.
I saw that with the emus or emu farm.
Out. Hated. And Christopher Nolan's Tenet. So fucking boring.
Wow.
And I've liked everything he's ever made. And I was okay with it for an hour, but oh my God, I wish I stopped.
If you never realized how into time he was, now he really lets you know he's really super into time.
His action is so boring. I don't think I could watch Inception anymore.
The turnstile door? You can't do the carousel turnstile door for a half hour?
No, I don't know, man.
Yeah, pretty boring.
I mean that Branagh was up to something, so that was kind of nice. But huge disappointments. I'm just gonna throw a blanket directors or good directors on Netflix. As everyone who listened knows, way out on the Charlie Kaufman, I'm thinking of ending things. Way out on Dee Reese, like I just said. Way out on Olivier Assayas Wasp Network. Terrible. Or just boring. I guess not completely terrible. So I mean, this is a trend. Good directors make Netflix movies that are just not interesting. And then I'll toss in a real disappointment to me was Miranda July coming back after almost a decade with Kajillionaire, which is not good. With Evan Rachel Wood, who I like, and Richard Jenkins, who I like.
Yeah,
Not into that. Yeah. It wasn't, I
heard it's
mean,
quirky, but hopefully it's the quirky I like.
yeah, people are making excuses for that one. Two good horror movies. I guess I'll go quicker. The Wolf House, which is a Argentina German. It's a German stop motion fucking horror show with no plot. That I don't know how to describe that, man, but it's terrifying. Cronenberg's Possessor, as we talked about, and then the real horror movie to me was Ken Loach's movie Sorry We Missed You, which is about a guy who delivers for a subcontractor of Amazon, and just the absolute horror of our modern fucking working class world. That crushed me. I don't know if anyone saw that, but that's a miserable movie. This is the year of Steve McQueen, no doubt, with the Small Axe movies. I thought at least 3 were great, as Mangrove was my favorite. The pleasant surprises for me this year, these were ones I just thought were 15 minutes and out for me. Like, I was not looking forward to these, but because they were on streaming sites I already subscribed to, I gave them a shot, and I liked them. Both kind of biopics about writers. So I liked Fincher's Mank, and I liked Josephine Decker's Shirley, which was the Elizabeth Moss one.
Well, you liked Mank. All right. I was wondering.
I liked Mank, and I'm pretty far out on Elizabeth Moss. Unlike anyone, everyone loves her. I'm not into her at all, and Shirley worked, so I don't know. So yeah, but I liked Mank, not loved, but I liked it way more than expected. And then the why the fuck did everyone like this? And in this case, I'm gonna say why the fuck did everyone at least not think it was bad? Bill and Ted Face the Music is terrible. Or I mean, it's kind of enjoyable at times, but it's bad. That's a bad movie. And Mark Kermode thinks it's one of the best movies of the year. So I don't know. Like, that's a bad movie, and I love those movies. To some degree, yes. I got a special kind of shout out award here for 2 directors. I'm going to call it the churning out the quality / thanks for existing / comforting constants. And this will be for Quentin Dupieux with Deerskin and Bruno Dumont for Joan of Arc. Like, these guys just churn this shit out, and I like it every single time. There are deviations, but even when there's not, I like it. So, and I think they've both got movies next year. So there's like a guarantee of 2 movies I will like. I'm really happy for these people, these Frenchmen existing. And then my big award. Yeah, for sure. You guys got to get into the Bruno Dumont a little bit more. Just get with the flow here. And then my big award that I give every year is my Working Class Hero Award. And this is where I'll give it to Julia Garner for The Assistant. And I'll expand a little bit, because this is about a girl, a very small, quiet 80-minute movie about a girl who comes out of college and has an office job for a New York film producer. And it's just a real quiet performance as well. A character kind of at the bottom of this office totem pole, suffering small indignities. She picks up pretty quickly on this abusive environment that she's in, and not to the degree maybe, but we're talking like Weinstein level or Weinstein type abusive environment. There's an accelerating disappointment and disillusionment with her throughout the whole film, but also sometimes within single scenes as she tries to kind of talk to people about this and report things about this. And she quickly realizes it's just an environment of go along to get along, and it's just people kind of looking the other way and laughing about it while feeling sad about it. Like, this is just the way it is. And for this character, there's no resolution, but in the performance, I sense a defiance from her, an endurance within her of what she's putting up with. And of course, the film does not tell you this, but I just feel like she's not somebody who's going to submit to this and may actually have a way to deal with this or get out of this. And she's going to have to do this clearly without support because there's no one helping her. But so I mean, a lot of times my working class hero is the person who throws the Molotov cocktail and burns down the factory. But in this case, it's somebody who endures and is going to get out of this in some way. So she's great. It's a movie not a lot of people saw, but The Assistant I would pair with that Ken Loach one as just kind of subtly crushing. Well, the Loach one's a little more obviously crushing, but crushing working class movies that are really good and you have a hard time recommending.
I thought it was a great year for working class hero. I thought like the runaway winner I had was like Frank Critchlow, who is played by Sean Parks in Mangrove. And then anybody that's seen Nomadland, Linda May, they know exactly what I'm talking about with working class hero for her. Steve Yeun is a farmer in Minari, definitely working class hero. Cookie, the cook in First Cow. And lastly, working class hero in Possessor. I don't really remember his storyline, but Christopher Abbott's character seems like a futuristic working class hero who gets kind of railroaded or steamrolled by this Possessor person, but maybe he's not a hero type after all.
Working class casualty, at least.
Yeah, but a very strong year for working class hero for whatever reason. I'll run down some of my other categories. I guess you started with your worst films of the year. My worst film was called Idol, a Korean film I saw at the AFI Fest in 2019. I never give a film 1.5 stars. I can't remember the last time I gave any film 1.5 stars. This one got a 1.5 stars. I don't really remember the film. It's just about a boring couple. And then I gave 2 stars to a film called Nobody, spelled with an I on the end instead of a Y. Just a really cynical film from I think Central Europe, or might even be Middle Eastern film, but it's really cynical, and I didn't care for it at all. It left me a bad taste in my mouth. As did The Lodge. The third worst film I saw was The Lodge, the horror film. I really like Riley Keough. I thought she'd be great in a horror film, but that one just was pushing my buttons in the wrong.
You scared me off that, man. I was actually like excited for that. You scared me entirely off.
And it has an ending that I didn't apparently get the first time. Like I learned about it later, and that bumped it up from like 2 stars to 2.5. But I still don't like it. So those are the worst. By far, the most disappointing film of the year, the one I was hoping would be good, was Wonder Woman 1984. I thought it could be kitschy and fun to move it to the 80s and potential for the characters. And I like Kristen Wiig and Pedro Pascal, going on 11 the whole time. It just didn't work. So really kind of boring and bad action and like cringeworthy comedy bits and too much like Batman Returns, which is just better version of it. There's parts that work, but it really disappointing overall. It could have been so much better. Let's see. My favorite scene of the year, just saw it today. Never, rarely, sometimes, always. The scene where the film gets its name is really something to behold. The questions that you're asked in the process of getting an abortion, basically.
Is almost the exact same scene. That's a great scene, and there's a almost identical scene in that Assistant movie about her trying to report the producer's sexual misconduct, and it's almost the same. It's a very similar like HR conversation where they're really grilling her. Brutal to watch both of those.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I haven't seen The Assistant, but I'm glad that what you're saying about it makes the comparisons you're making makes me really want to check that one out. I kind of want to touch on music and sound for a minute. It's really an interesting year for music and film. My number one was Hamilton, and then of course Soul are both really music-focused films, as is American Utopia. It's music at the forefront of these films, and they're my favorite of the year. But then you have Nomadland, my number 2, with maybe my favorite music of the year, and then Small Axe. I'm a big fan of reggae, not just Lovers Rock, which does so many interesting things with music in that party. It's just all in a day with this traveling camera, and just I was just I couldn't believe the amount of good reggae that was coming out of that he was using for this series. So just wonderful music on film. But then Sound of Metal, what that's doing with sound, not the music, the heavy metal parts, like the first couple scenes. It's not about him being a drummer. I loved seeing this in the theater, an empty theater, the way that this sound is manipulated by the director to put you in his headspace or something similar, like an artistic version of it, take an artistic license with losing your hearing, the effect that it has. He's not the first to do it, but it was really effective in a theater. And I think Sound of Metal also had the best ending of the year. If you've seen it, the final shot, that was the one that left on the perfect note for me, and why Sound of Metal is in my top 5. My nicest surprise of the year was Middleditch and Schwartz. I didn't know that I never thought you could put like an improv comedy sketch on stage like a comedy special and have it work and people would watch it. I thought that was only doable in a live theater, but they found a way to put 3 of them as like episodes that feel like a movie to me on Netflix, and you can watch them do like crowd work at the beginning and just riff, and they're brilliant at it. They're like top-notch improv performers, and this filmed version of it was in my top 5 or 10 for most of the year until it got pushed out by other like films. Now it's still in my top 15. And like stand-up comedy never finishes in my top 10 unless it's like Hannah Gadsby. Her 2 specials are really high up for me, but nobody else. So that was a really nice surprise. I didn't have any in the category of why the fuck did everyone like that film. There was nothing that people liked. I really didn't. Smokers Lounge Award. You see Nomadland, Lucky Stripes, I guess, or whatever she's smoking in that. Best documentary. I haven't talked about Time, Garrett Bradley's film about how the criminal justice system tears families apart. It's really well done. Maybe the best editing of the year in that film. Really different, and it's different for a documentary. That and City Hall by Frederick Wiseman, 4.5-hour documentary that's like easy to watch, but it's just a certain headspace you have to get into. That one kind of warmed on me. Another good documentary, but there's still a bunch of documentaries I want to get to. I think it's a good year for documentaries, seemingly. Best villain is probably in Soul, or well, I think my villain of the year I can't say, because if I tell you what film or the person who plays it, it'll kind of ruin the film. So I'll kind of skip over that. Best cinematography. I haven't mentioned this film, Vitalina Varela. I didn't love the film. It's not really my speed. The Pedro Costa is my first, I think, that I've seen from him. It's going to take me some time, I can tell, to get into his stuff. But the chiaroscuro effect of the lighting and compositions of this movie are breathtaking. It beat out Nomadland. I think Nomadland has the best cinematography if it wasn't for Vitalina Varela. But Lover's Rock is shot beautifully as well. Best screenplay. Oh, man, Judas and the Black Messiah is really smart. 20th Century is really smartly constructed in those chapters, telling the biopic and that. But I'm going to give it to Promising Young Woman. Kind of a rape revenge kind of genre film written by a woman, in a directorial debut. That's another thing. Best debut feature. I think Emerald Fennell from Promising Young Woman, or Regina King for One Night in Miami. I can't tell if the guy who did Sound of Metal, it's his first film, or I think he did one before that, but I was impressed with that one. But I would give, if I'm voting for Best Director, I would love for it to go to Steve McQueen, but I think Chloe Zhao is the deserving. If you're going to take one film that's like everybody agrees is a film, I think Nomadland's a knockout. Yeah, body of work. So McQueen, like best year, best body of work, or Leslie Odom Jr. He's the standout in Hamilton, and I think probably the standout in One Night in Miami.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, I wasn't keen. I didn't know much about this, but he's in that horribly controversial Sia movie, or how do you say that? The Australian singer.
She has a movie.
She's got some movie where she has like a 18-year-old playing somebody, I guess, unbelievably offensively autistic, and it's like this big controversy, and he's right on the poster. So I was like, oh no, not that. It's his Norbit. He's fucked.
Oh jeez.
Look into that. It's called Music. It got a Golden Globe nomination, even though it's at 17% on the reviews. So, Leslie, just hide him. Pay someone to take you off that poster. You're gonna ruin your year. Sam Cooke, right? He played Sam Cooke.
He plays Sam Cooke, yeah. And I think a lot of people, maybe like mainstream America, knew him as like, well, he was like in Nationwide insurance commercials, playing piano during like football games and stuff. But I'm glad that he got the notoriety for people that didn't know he was in Hamilton and got to see him on there this year. And yeah, getting more bigger projects, I'm sure, coming down the pipeline. I guess last category I'll mention is best genre film. We never really talked about that before, like how you define what a genre picture is. But I just want to mention 2 gangster pictures. One is kind of a modern Western gangster film, which is Bacurau, Brazilian kind of Western film. but it's like kind of a gang shootout film. And then Wild Goose Lake was one that I really loved from, I forget where I saw that, some festival or something, but it's a Chinese film, if I'm not mistaken, right? A gangster film, guys ride motorcycles. It's very dark and moody and not a lot of dialogue. Just a great tone to it, and it was in my top 10 for most of the year. It's still high up there, but it's a great little gangster film.
You see that in a theater?
Yeah, at a festival.
Yeah, I really wish I had. I really liked that. I watched it quite a while ago. I think I may put it at number 11, but I think I'd probably second that as for my genre movie. But I really feel like an uninterrupted theatrical thing is important there, because it's not about the plot necessarily. It's more a mood. It's very cool. Yeah.
I'm gonna make one less category up on the spot here. I was looking at my best. Like I said, it was a weak year for comedies. I think the best comedy is probably 20th Century. Promising Young Woman is surprisingly like a romantic comedy, but it's also rape revenge movie. It's really weird tone. But the category I'm making up here is the film that's surprisingly lingered. The most lingering film for me is Palm Springs.
Wow.
It's a weird. It's like maybe the best comedy when I saw it, and it's like in my top like 25, 27 film. But I think about this film like once a week since I've seen it, and it's kind of like a body swap movie. It's not a body swap, but it's using time in a way that's been used in similar ways in a lot of other movies. But it does it slightly differently and charmingly and hilariously. And saw it over the holidays with my family, who I hadn't seen in person in like 10 months. And so we've been sharing memories, like jokes from that movie. So yeah, Palm Springs has surprising staying power. So maybe that's a category for future, the ones that's lingered the longest.
Yeah, there's 6 or 7 that could fit on this bottom tier, but I'll just give you the 4 worst ones. John Bronco, starring Walton Goggins.
John Bronco?
John Bronco, you got it. David Spade and Nick Swardson in The Wrong Missy was terrible, very bad. Hubie Halloween, terrible.
Oh, man.
And The Prom, also terrible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that one.
So,
that's a controversial pick.
Yep. So let's see. Nicest surprise, definitely Hamilton for me. Didn't expect to like that so much. Biggest disappointment, almost certainly Kajillionaire. Best scenes, there's, I don't know, a couple. Well, like 20th Century had some great scenes. I'll knock that down to 2. Like, I love the leadership training program. It's great, and that minister guy is gold throughout the film as well. But and the other scene, the big like skating flag competition near the end of the film, also great. That scene, that ice cream scene, or where they stop for ice cream in the Kaufman film. I'm thinking of Ending Things. That with that kind of Lynchian feel. That was a scene I liked a lot. Deerskin, endless great scenes. The girl in the car one was stands out. And when he goes and they buy him gloves, also stood out to me as a couple of great scenes. Director, I don't know. It's hard to not give that to McQueen, but I could give it to Depew as well. I guess that's about all I have on 2020. So what about 2021? Robert, give me 3 films you're looking forward to, assuming they come out. We'll just pretend we think they're coming out.
Usually I think about it by like director. Like, does Tarantino have one? Does PTA have one? But we don't know. Like, is the Scorsese DiCaprio like Flower Moon one going to come out in 2021? I don't know.
Well, the Scorsese McKay one might. So get amped.
Oh, I would say for the ones that we know are coming out, definitely Dune, high up on my list. Definitely the Wes Anderson French Dispatch. I always run into the waiting arms of any new Wes Anderson film. So those 2. I'm still excited for the Bond film. I'm kind of trying to think of what else got postponed, but I want to see the Bond. Yeah. I know there's another big one, but I can't think of what it is. Marvel, whatever the Marvel one
Black
is.
Widow is still to come out.
By the way, I meant DiCaprio. DiCaprio McKay. So he
Oh.
no Scorsese, maybe
Okay.
no Scorsese DiCaprio, but
I
you'll
was
get
wondering what
DiCaprio
that
hitching his
Scorsese
way.
McKay was. Yeah.
No, well, there is a Scorsese SCTV doc, so get amped.
That was made like 2 years ago.
Right, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
Eric
weird.
or Robert brought up Marvel, so I can actually, I mean, since you were all in for Nomadland, her Marvel movie comes out this year called Eternals.
That's right.
Oh yeah.
That's a book I actually like a lot. So I've read a few different iterations of Eternals, and it's excellent. So that's actually appealing.
I think we might get the new Thor movie. No, is that 2022? I don't know. I lost the track of the timeline for Marvel now.
I think Doctor Strange 2 is pretty soon, so that would have been this year, but may have been pushed to next year because of all the. I'm trying to. There was a bunch of stuff. Marvel's got a shit ton of stuff coming. Just thinking of that July or December press conference, the stockholders meeting or whatever. It was all Marvel and Star Wars. Just endless stuff coming out. I guess for me, the two that stand out, Dune, absolutely. It's a book I love, and I don't hate the Lynch movie because, I don't know, I've grown to appreciate it a little bit, but definitely doesn't do the book justice. So Villeneuve always gonna bring something quality. So, and I'm glad that one will be in the theater. It's most likely because that's where I'm going to want to see it. So Dune and going back to the Depew Mandibles, which has played a couple festivals last year. So it's done. It's out there. Looks pretty great. So hopefully that'll be any time now.
And has your Telluride Darling in it.
Exarchopoulos or whatever.
There you go. Your Greek darling from she's good, so that'll be good.
Yeah, saw her drunk on the street a couple of times. So
right, yeah.
Nice.
Always got to check what our other Telluride darling Xavier Dolan is up to. See if he's got another one in the pipeline. He's a bounce back.
When is his comeback? Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I think there's also Kelly Reichardt movie this year. Always look forward to those.
I didn't even watch it, man. It was last year. We didn't even watch it.
Last year. Okay.
Well, Robert cited it for a working class hero, but something was setting off my I don't know about this alarm. So for some reason I didn't watch it. And I had a friend tell me I would absolutely like it, and he just texted me out of the blue to watch it. So I don't know. Something was turning me off to that one. But
not passing the whiff test.
Yeah, I didn't want to steal. I mean, that could be. I don't want to have to pay royalties.
Yeah,
so I didn't say that.
Bleep that out. So
yeah. But I put together just a list of. I haven't looked ahead, but today I just kind of went through a list of movies coming out supposedly. So I just put together a list of names of directors that are at least interesting. So hopefully some of these come out.
Bruno Dumont and Quentin Depew.
Yeah, Depew was on there, but I deleted after you said it. Okay. So I've got specific to me, maybe the first one: Brady Corbett, Eric Warheim, Hao Xiaoshen has a film, Claire Denis, Paul Schrader, Kogonada. First film since what was that? Columbus.
Yeah. I was just wondering what he's going to do next. Yeah.
Been a while. Jacques Audiard, going back to not English language, which is probably good. Park Chan-wook, Leo Scarrax, first film since what is it? A while ago, but like more than a decade ago. I just forgot the name of it. That was a big one. Anyway.
Yeah. What the hell is that?
Yeah, I just forgot that. Holy Motors.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. There's a couple I'm not so sure. Coen Brothers. It says. We'll see.
The Batman. I want to see the Batman.
There you go. Is that Matt Reeves? I think.
I'm definitely seeing Godzilla too. I'm looking forward to that one. I like the last Godzilla.
I'm canceling HBO Max before that comes out. Not gonna tempt myself. No trash.
I'm in.
Yeah, Coen Brothers, Guillermo del Toro, supposedly. I got one specifically for Robert. Mike Mills, coming off 20th Century Women, has a Joaquin movie, so that's something. Specific for Eric, it's been a while. Jean-Pierre Jeunet has a film.
Holy mackerel! No
That's
kidding.
exciting. Two I'm not buying, but they were on the list. PTA and Scorsese non-documentaries. Apparently, I don't believe it. And then
Yeah,
the
the
three
PTA, I think I heard. Yeah, it's like
for
already
real.
close to like he was shooting or was going to shoot before the shutdown. Like I think it's ready to go or to
Well,
start. I mean,
that's a guarantee it'll be the trailer of the year because he usually makes the best
right.
movie, but the trailer's always the best. And then I have three. My top three for sure is Bruno Dumont coming off Joan of Arc. I'm not buying this one coming out, but Jonathan Glazer finally coming off Under the Skin.
Wow.
And then Robert Eggers coming off The Lighthouse are supposed to have
Hmm.
films. So I don't know if like 2/3 of those come out, that'd be great.
Yeah, half
yeah,
wouldn't be bad.
Robert Eggers is a Viking one. I saw pictures from the set. That should be coming out.
There you go. Yeah, that one seems for sure. Dumont for sure, and no one else cares, but that will happen. But a lot of those, seem pretty locked in. There's some of those big ones, Scorsese and PTA. Sometimes they push those off pretty far, but why? Just put them out, man.
Well, you never know what Netflix and Amazon are going to whip up to out of nowhere. So, yeah, not too bad. Not too bad looking slate, I guess, if you look at it from afar. Well, that's 2020, guys. 10th season of talking about films in the books. Moving on to 2021, I think we got a pretty good idea of some stuff to move forward on and do some regular episodes for a change here. So we're going to try and keep it going as best we can. One of these upcoming Fridays, the year episode gang with Al and I, Jason and Quentin will be talking about the year 2007 in music and film. So big film year there to talk about. Some PTA, some Coen Brothers, and so we'll talk about 2007 on one of these Fridays, depending on my schedule. But look for shows here every couple of weeks now going forward. Robert, you in April, I assume now, for the Oscar pool party return?
I think so. Do you know when they're going to announce like the nominees? Like I think they just had a short list come out last week for some of the categories. So I'm not excited about it right now, but I usually it's kind of like World Cup fever. I get it once they start playing. I get into it. So they announce the nominees and give me a list to like think about. I'll probably get excited and always looking forward to putting a wager on the line with you guys.
Yeah, I think it's like March 17th or something is when they announce the nominees. So then April, middle of April is the show. That's probably going to be a virtual show. Yeah, April.
Might be on my birthday.
Ooh.
I'm not watching that.
Well, red carpet. I think it's going to be Oscar themed at your party.
Oh, 25th, the 1 week after my birthday. So.
Well, it's that deep into April, huh? All right.
Yeah, pretty weird. And then you go right into your hot summer movie season.
Yeah. Well, all right. Thanks, guys. Once again, email the show, call the show, voicemail line 608-535-9302, FlicksationPodcast @gmail.com or at Flicksation on Twitter. Thank you, Minister, for joining us in these cold times. But the alcohol probably, and talk of 2020 probably warmed you up just fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed it. I do have my expanded list on Letterboxd, Thin White Duke. And, there's normally when we finish this, we're in some kind of winter film wasteland, but Robert talked up hugely two movies that are available to both of us either now or within a week with Judas and the Black Messiah and Nomadland. So I don't feel that wasteland this year.
Definitely, Robert. Thanks as always. Another year in the books.
Yeah, always glad to be able to recommend some that we saw throughout the year or that are coming up. I would put Minari in that group of one that I think a lot of people really enjoy. So see that as soon as you can. But yeah, let's do it again. Same time next year. Can't wait to do it. But yeah, good to be back. And you can see my full top 10, my full top 49 on Letterboxd at Robert Gassaway.
All right. Thanks, folks. Have a good one, and we will catch you on the Flick side.